What's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. It is Monday, October 17th. Yes, the 17th. I questioned myself there for a second. All three fellows are with you. We're recording Monday, 5 p.m. right before Monday Night Football. Cameron and Tyler both with me tonight. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Lucas Wenzel, Camlaw317 for Cameron Tyler _Plath. And make sure you're following the fellas socials as well. FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on TikTok and YouTube. If you're watching the YouTube video right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. We are dropping content every single day and sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're subscribed to get all that content from us. And if you want to join a community full of league winners, last plug, join our Chalkboard down in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are watching right now. Ask us trade questions, waiver wire questions, start sit questions, anything. You'll have your question answered by somebody and by us. Sometimes we poke our heads in there and we make sure we get questions answered too. So that is down in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are listening to. Hi, how are we doing, guys?
Doing
Let me
pretty
just rattle
good.
all that off quick.
Well, you're better than me. I went the first 2.5 minutes on the last Monday episode and transitioned into or on the Wednesday episode and transitioned into a buy and sell and didn't let Ty talk for the first like 3 minutes. And I was like, oh shoot, Ty, you're here too.
You just have to acknowledge you're here.
Yes. No, I'm doing good now. The Vikings are 5-1, so feeling good after
Vikes. School Vikes.
I would be better if Cam actually responded to my trade, but I'm good otherwise.
That's how these things work around the podcast. There are dozens of trade offers sent every day, and until you respond, you're worthless. We have week 6 pretty much in the books here, fellas. We got one more game tonight, but let's recap all of Sunday's action. We're going to skip over Overreaction Monday. We know we normally bring that to you, but frankly, this week, it wasn't necessarily a normal week. Maybe the one thing I would point out is that running back scoring was really down this week. I believe Antonio Gibson is a top 30 running back, and he scored 8.3 fantasy points. So that's the zone, not the zone, the lens you need to view this week from. But let's cover some news and notes before we dive into the full recap of this week. Maybe news that broke today. Well, not maybe. This news did break today, but maybe where we should start. Robbie Anderson got ejected from yesterday's game by his own coach. Got sent to the locker room mid-game. And then the very next day, the Arizona Cardinals trade a 2024 6th-round pick and a 2025 7th-round pick. So chump change is what they got Robbie Anderson for. Not that Robbie Anderson is worth much more than like a 5th-round pick probably, but like in light of Marquise Brown going down with injury, they got him for a pack of Pop-Tarts, as I say.
4th-string linebacker and a backup kicker, pretty much.
Right. That's essentially what they just got Robbie Anderson for. And Robbie Anderson has a bit of juice left in him, I would say, but he is now an Arizona Cardinal. Immediate fantasy impact because Marquise Brown did leave yesterday's game with a foot injury. He's in a walking boot, and now he essentially is likely out for the season. So they get DeAndre Hopkins back this week. Is this more about DeAndre Hopkins or more about Robbie Anderson, this trade? Maybe not this trade, but Marquise Brown now being out with Robbie Anderson now on the team.
I don't know how much it actually changes for D-Hop. You know, he was always going to get his. I think it's good that they brought someone else in because otherwise, you know, the teams are just going to key in on D-Hop like they did at the beginning of last year.
Yep.
But we'll see. I mean, Robbie has to prove that he's got something left in the tank, you know, because if he's just another AJ Green who goes out, you know, he goes out there and
he'll give you 10 some weeks and then 2 another week.
So I don't know. I mean, Robbie's got a chance to be semi-fantasy relevant, but I don't think it affects D-Hop too much.
I mean, Robbie's worth stashing on your roster.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, you got to go at him on waivers. By the time you listen to this, waivers will not have run yet. And Ty, you put out TikTok today on Monday, and the waiver in our chalkboard will go up tomorrow. Make sure you join there for all of our waiver advice. He'll be on there as well. Like, you have to add. He is probably Is he the top speculative ad this week?
Arguably, yeah. I mean, I would say Wandale just because Wandale is going to get. I
need
like
to see a
Wandale.
snaps go up first, but
Well, they should. They
Yeah.
will, but that's not Robbie Anderson. We're not
that's not
talking
Robbie.
Wandale. No, but like to answer your question, Lucas, I think this is like more of a pro Rondale Moore thing, to be honest.
That's what I like to hear.
Because I'm not expecting a whole lot from DeAndre Hopkins first couple weeks. Like it would be awesome if he, because they play on Thursday. It would be awesome if he just comes in and puts up a 30-piece first week back in kind of like an FU, kind of like Roger Goodell kind of thing, right? Like it'd be sweet. I'm not expecting it. 6 weeks is a lot of time off. Robbie Anderson will be learning an offense. I think Rondale Moore could really kind of step up and, legitimately kind of put himself in as the wide receiver 2 in that offense.
And if I'm not mistaken, Rondale Moore, second straight week of at least 7 targets. If I'm not mistaken,
he had 10 this week.
Yeah, dude is a target machine right now. Like, and now you subtract the wide receiver 1 in that offense. You bring the wide receiver 1 back. Like, I think Robbie Anderson is a nice little depth piece, but like, I think Rondale Moore is the better wide receiver. Like, I don't think that's a bold statement to say. And if they're going to pepper Rondale Moore with targets, great. Let's just get depth for chump change since we lost the guy we traded a first round pick for.
Yeah, they got to do something. You just lost 19-9 to the Seahawks. Your running backs are hurt and look awful, and D-Hop's coming back off a suspension. You feel like they should be getting Rondale Moore the ball a lot just because he's that gadget player. So, because they need to spark the offense somehow.
Right. We've wandered off of Robbie Anderson, but I mean, this impacts all Cardinals wide receivers, right?
Yes.
Like, we can't just limit it to Robbie Anderson. So I think D-Hop, I think he just steps back in where I think we should get what we're used to seeing from D-Hop. I know he's coming off of suspension here, so he might be a little bit more slow, but like, he's coming back in. He's taking over the wide receiver 1 role. I think Rondale Moore slides into that wide receiver 2 role. And if anything, Robbie Anderson then slides in as a third wide receiver on the outside there. So we'll see. We'll see how they play it out. But sticking on the Panthers, they're apparently seriously listening to offers for CMC. I don't know who to believe anymore. I feel like we get these reports, and then a day later, Tom Pelissero or Schefter will come out, or Rappaport, and they'll say, actually, they haven't received any calls. So I don't know who to believe, but for the sake of reckless speculation, where should CMC go? If a team were to make a serious offer and satisfy the needs of 3 first-round picks, I believe that's what multiple first-round picks, I believe was.
Is that what they really
The
said?
sentiment. Yes. Yeah, they said multiple first-round picks. I believe that's what. Did I misread a report or misinterpret a report? I thought they said multiple firsts.
I think it's multiple picks. I thought it was a first and then like a third or second.
I mean, Carolina can ask for multiple firsts all they want, but I
Yeah.
think they're going to.
I mean, we're looking at like
first,
right? Given where running backs are now valued in drafts.
Yeah.
So, anyways, should a team satisfy every single need of the Carolina Panthers, which I doubt anybody will? If there's one team who can / will, who would it be?
I don't know if they will or can, but who I want to see, not from a fantasy perspective, I would hate it being a CMC manager, but it's the Ravens. Could you imagine CMC and Lamar in the same backfield?
I'd be terrified. I'd be terrified.
That would be a pretty legit backfield. I don't think they will, and I think his receiving numbers start going down, but I think it'd be so much fun to watch as an NFL fan.
Do we know how many years left Miles Sanders has on his contract in Philadelphia?
This is a contract year for him.
Yep.
I think the Eagles could. They were
That
going
would
to
be
my
another
pick.
fun one.
They're going to be my pick, was the Philadelphia Eagles. Because my first pick was the Miami Dolphins, but then they traded everything for Tyreek Hill, so they have nothing. So that wouldn't even be close to realistic. I think the Eagles could.
You don't think Mostert and Edmonds for CMC would do it?
I might. I don't know. I would.
Salvon Ahmed, maybe Myles Gaskin. Who knows?
You can even send Skylar Thompson over.
Gritty King, Mike Gesicki in that deal. Anyways.
No, I think Philly would be extremely fun for CMC, and they have the capital to go make that move.
They do. They have the capital to go make that move. They do. They have multiple firsts. They'd be the ones I'd love to see it from. I don't know if they'll make it work, but they would be my top choice.
Yep.
Because not only does it give like NFL relevance to CMC still, not that he'll ever be irrelevant, but like fantasy gold mine. Fantasy gold mine. No question. So we'll see. We'll see if the Panthers do anything. I'm not entirely positive that they will, but
no.
Let's move on to Kenny Pickett, knocked out of Sunday's game with a concussion. Mitchell Trubisky stepped in and looked not good. Just something to keep an eye on. Cameron Brate, head injury also in that same game. We talked about D-Hop returning this week. Yes, we need to talk about this, though. Cam Akers is believed to have played his last game for the Los Angeles Rams. Did not play Sunday due to personal reasons, but we know that's him just holding out until he gets traded. He's come out and said that himself. Did we get what this backfield is actually going to taste like on Sunday? Did we get what they're probably going to be like going forward without Cam Akers? Darrell Henderson, the one, and it's a crapshoot from there.
Yeah, I guess. I still don't know how valuable Henderson's going to be. This offensive line is awful in Los Angeles.
They just lost their left tackle for the season now, too.
Yeah.
I don't want any part of their backfield. I don't.
No.
I really don't. It's been ugly all year.
And they go 49ers and Bucks next 2 weeks.
No, I'm out. Sell Darrell Henderson while you can right now.
I think
scored
that's
13 last week. You got to go sell him while you can.
Yep.
You got to go sell him while you can. Cam Akers, though. Give me your trade destination for Cam Akers.
I don't even know. Probably to the Bills.
I'm seriously I think they're a real possibility.
They just like those mediocre running backs and just hoping one hits. So I think he'd be the kind of the
epitome of that.
Yeah.
Not that Cam Akers is mediocre, but like guys who have flashes of potential, but then the Bills never decide to do anything about it.
Yeah, maybe the Dolphins. But like you said, Dolphins don't have anything. I don't know. I mean, he's just he's still coming off the Achilles, and we haven't seen the burst since he's been back. So I don't know how much teams are going to really be like. It's not like Cam Akers. I don't understand it either because he was getting opportunities, but he just didn't look great. So I don't know what he's thinking he's going to get here. So I don't know. We'll see.
I would love Atlanta for Cam Akers.
Oh, that'd be
a sneaky contender. Sneaky contender, I think.
Because Atlanta's in the prime spot where they can just kind of they can give Cam Akers the opportunity. They're not trying to win now, even though they are winning. They're not trying to win.
They shouldn't be winning.
They shouldn't be winning. They should have lost to San Francisco. Back to Cam Akers. Atlanta would give him that kind of opportunity. Give him a year or two to kind of show himself. And I think probably in a more friendly scheme to Cam Akers than LA, where everything is Stafford and Kupp versus Atlanta. They kind of need a running game. So I don't know. I like Atlanta for Cam Akers.
Odds they trade him in division.
To the Cards?
No, not to the Cardinals. There's literally a team I was just looking at and now I lost them. The 49ers.
0.
I don't think McVay would make a trade with or whoever what is their GM? Oh, I can't remember his name now.
Lynch.
Yeah.
Well, Lynch is on San Francisco, but I don't think they
less need.
Yes, less need.
I don't think they're trading in division.
I don't think they would either, but
because San Francisco realistically is their only true competition. Like Seattle and the Cardinals are kind of like they can have decent weeks, but like we saw it last week, they both can look awful too. So yeah. I don't think they're going to give them to 49ers, especially knowing the need the 49ers have a running back right now.
We'll see where Cam Akers ends up, but anywhere he lands, I'm not super excited about him for fantasy. So even as a speculative, he could get into a better situation. I'm not going out and actively shopping for Cam Akers right now. Last piece of news here, and then we'll get on with the rest of the episode. Carson Wentz, fractured finger. He is out 4 to 6 weeks. The IR is a possibility for him. I believe he's been downgraded to out, but not put on the IR yet, if I'm correct.
Not yet, no.
Or if I'm not mistaken.
Did you guys also see Elijah Moore on Twitter?
What was up with Elijah Moore? I think I saw something, but I don't recall off the top of my head.
I'm going to pull it up because it's Interesting.
Does he want out?
No.
Oh yes, that tweet. That is what I saw. Yes, that's extremely interesting.
Yeah. So
Go ahead. You can
Yeah,
read it, Ty, and I'll
Rich-
give my thoughts.
Rich, shoot, I'm gonna botch his last name, but Chamini, I don't know. He works, or he's a ESPN NFL Nation reporter. He tweeted last night after the Packers Jets game, of all the eye popping stats / factoids today, this one is hard to understand. Elijah Moore had 0 targets. Elijah Moore quoted the tweet from Rich and said, "If I say what I really want to say, I'll be the selfish guy. We're winning. I'm grateful. It's a huge blessing. It's all I ever wanted. But it's bittersweet for me. But I'll be solid. So I'll just stay quiet. Just know I don't understand either."
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
I think
we're gonna get an Elijah Moore week next week.
That is him saying what he wanted to say.
It is.
That's exactly what he did. If you comment on it, everyone knows what you're thinking. Dang, I didn't realize he had 0 targets. Oh, that's nuts.
He did, yes. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. I'm thinking we get a fairly decent Elijah Moore game. I say fairly decent because Zach Wilson's at quarterback. But
what? You don't love Zach Wilson? 10 of 18 for 110 yards?
That's why I traded him for Kirk Cousins in our Dynasty League. Let's move on.
Trey Lance has been a better success than Zach Wilson.
Preach. Let's move on to our boom and bust players of the week as we recap everything from week 6. I'm going to eat my words on this one. I was live for Fantasy Pros on Sunday, right before kickoff. And I said that Deion Jackson wasn't going to be that great of a play. I thought people were overreacting a little bit and thinking, oh, he's a clear running back 1 this week. Not even Naeem Hines is in the game. I was terribly wrong. Deion Jackson, running back 1 overall on the week. 28 fantasy points, 12 rushing attempts for only 42 yards. That's the kind of game I was expecting from Deion Jackson. I did not account he was going to see the second most targets for the Indianapolis Colts. 10 targets, 10 receptions, 79 yards, more yards. He was a wide receiver this game. I don't care what you tell me. He had more receiving yards than rushing yards. He scored through the air as well. Great. Nice job, Deion Jackson. Jonathan Taylor's back next week. I don't care.
I don't want to brag, but I was on the Fellas Live right before kickoff, and I said that you should be starting Deion Jackson ahead of CEH.
Good play. Well done.
I only said it once.
You did better than me yesterday. You did better than me. I hope they were listening to that, not me on Fantasy Pros.
Only reason I said it is because I had to put him in a lineup last second because like half of my team got hurt. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stick with this, even though he's a desperation play.
He was great. Yeah, he was great.
He's irrelevant now.
Yeah, I wish I would have said he was a stash. Yeah. But I thought Jonathan Taylor was going to play this week, and then Saturday night when you get ruled out, I can't go back on my words from earlier in the week. So This guy, though, let me tell you about this guy. I like this next guy. Ramondre Stevenson, running back 2 on the week, 25 fantasy points. I think he's made his case to be. I know the tide was already shifting to Ramondre being the running back 1 in this offense before Damian Harris's hamstring injury. I think it's solidified now. I'm not saying Damian Harris is toast, but I am saying I think we're going to start seeing more of a split now with Ramondre, or the split being more in favor of Ramondre than it was prior to the Damian Harris injury. 25 fantasy points, 19 carries for 76 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 receptions for 15 yards as well. I don't know what you all think about Ramondre. I absolutely love him going forward. He's going to be one of my favorite plays, especially if Damian Harris also misses next week against the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, it's good to see him get some targets at least.
Yes.
That's the thing I'm excited about. But yeah, I am a little concerned still with Damian Harris coming back. I'm not quite all in this year. As far as like dynasty goes, you gotta be really excited about him because Damian Harris is on a contract here, so he's gone after this season. But he's for sure got to be a solid fantasy option moving forward. They're not going to not use him. He's looked really good on the field.
I was going to go bold, but what I was going to say was Ramondre Stevenson is more of a league winner than Kenneth Walker.
I think there's some truth to that statement.
Well, and there's truth right now, but it's a whole new ballgame when Damian Harris comes back.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's why I can't say
Sure.
it.
I mean, and Ken Walker. I mean, goodness, he's in the honorable mentions here. He looked really good on Sunday. Like,
Yeah, it's against Arizona, though.
I don't care. He looked really good. He looked really good.
Yeah, I can't believe it. 21 carries. That's crazy.
Yeah, he is going to be the workhorse there now. Like Pete Carroll said, DJ Dallas was going to get touches. He got 2. He hardly saw the field. We'll talk about Kenneth Walker, but for Ramondre Stevenson, as long as Damian Harris is out, like he's got to be in your lineup. Like he is just too good and gets the receiving work as well. Christian McCaffrey, running back 3 on the week, not a whole lot of surprise there. 22.8 fantasy points, 69 yards on 13 attempts. Nice. 7 receptions on 8 targets for 89 yards. Didn't even score. And he's top 3 on the week. Like this is vintage Christian McCaffrey.
It was just really disappointing because he had 12 fantasy points in the first drive. 40 yards rushing, 4 catches, 40 more yards. And like, then they don't score and they don't just stop using him. And it's just like, he's your best player by a lot. He's the only reason that you're going to be in any game. You should be giving him the ball, but whatever. It's not up to me.
He's still running back. I mean, the fact that he's running back 3 on the week, didn't score a touchdown. Like that's how good Christian McCaffrey is. This is why you took him with the 101 or the 102. And if you didn't, you're eating your words right now. Well, until he gets injured, and then
he's not going to.
He's not going to, though. He's not going to
this season.
Positive thoughts only. Positive vibes. Honorable mentions. Leonard Fournette. Dude, I don't know what was up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday. Leonard Fournette was the only one who had a good day, and probably because they just kept force feeding him the football. Tyler, you had thoughts on that as you were watching the game.
It's stupid. Okay. And I get they did. Let me say this too. They did try to throw the ball. And you know what? Brady had a bad game. Brady had an awful game. Going up against that secondary, who has been garbage all year, there was no reason why Tom Brady should have thrown for less than 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. But for whatever reason, the game plan for the Buccaneers was to establish the run and then use Brady, which I get. But at the same time, why? Take what the defense is giving you. The defense is giving you a really good opportunity to beat them through the air. Take it.
Wasn't Brady out late partying before the weekend too? I thought
he went to Robert Kraft's wedding on Friday.
He was out partying. Yeah.
Why is Robert Kraft having a wedding? The man's like 98.
Because he has nothing else to do. So
I guess so. Fournette was averaging 3 yards a carry, and they still gave him 21 carries. The one thing about that, it should make you, very secure in having Leonard Fournette moving forward.
Yeah.
He can be awful on the ground, and they're still going to give him the ball, and he's going to get receptions through the air. So you should feel very solid going forward about Leonard Fournette.
I 100% agree with that. Breece Hall, another honorable mention. Look, he's just really good. He's really good at football. Okay. Like we said this from the get-go. Breece Hall, he's going to take over eventually. Oh, he's taken over the past, 3 weeks now? Yeah, Breece Hall, really good. Should be in your lineup every single week. Kenyon Drake. See a waiver ad this week, 19.7 fantasy points. I'm not too interested.
He did out carry J.K. Dobbins 10-7.
He did.
And Dobbins did not look great.
Yeah, what do we think about that? Like that's why I ask, is Kenyon Drake worth an ad? I'm just not interested. Dobbins. I'm like, gosh, I can only think of Kenyon Drake and Gus Edwards right now. Dobbins. His knee apparently tightened up during the game as well, something to monitor, but like that's what I'm chalking that up to. And I don't know if Kenyon Drake broke off a massive run.
Mm-hmm. He had 2 big runs.
Big chunk of his yardage. So I'm not interested. I don't know. Are you, Ty?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm not sure if I said this in the group chat. I think I did. In our group chat. I think I did. I'm avoiding this Ravens backfield for the foreseeable future because, I mean, Dobbins did score twice in his first game back, but one of those coming off of receiving. And since that game, we haven't seen any receiving work. Plus his running is that's the only way I'll phrase it. It's not looking good. And so it may just be a case of just knocking off the rust. But that being said, Gus Edwards is going to be in the exact same boat. And Kenyon Drake is Kenyon Drake.
Yeah.
Like I can't if you have Kenyon Drake, there's little to no confidence with starting him because you just don't know how that game will play out.
Yeah. I mean, Lamar Jackson's still 5th in the NFL in rushing yards right now, averaging 9 yards a carry. He's running back 1, so even if, Kenyon Drake's going to be decent, he's not going to be amazing moving forward if he's splitting running back carries as well. So
the only Ravens I want are Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. Even Rashad Bateman, I'm a little bit iffy on and coming off of a foot injury as well.
Yep.
So
unfortunately.
Kenneth Walker, we touched on him a little bit. Look, he looked really good. I think he needs to be in your lineups going forward. If he's going to be the guy in Seattle and he's going to get that kind of work,
yep.
I feel like he's going to David Montgomery his way to like a league winning season. Like don't hear, I'm not like planting my flag on Ken Walker being a league winner, but like it's going to be a David Montgomery, like a David Montgomery type of season for him now, where he's just going to ugly volume his way, a top 20 finish the rest of the season. It's not going to be pretty every game, but if they're going to give him this kind of work, I want him in my lineup.
Yeah, definitely.
Saquon Barkley, he's really good at football. So is Alvin Kamara. They wrap out our honorable mentions. Let's move on to our wide receiver booms for the week. And this guy, I'd like to welcome him back after a massive performance in week 1. People were ready to panic on him after scoring double-digit fantasy points. And every week after week 1, I mean, it wasn't great. Like, you don't expect 10, 12, 11 fantasy points from Jamar Chase. I don't think it's fair to expect 30 out of him every single week, but when he does, you're reminded, like, that's why I took this guy in the first round. 7 receptions on 10 targets for 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's back. You can play him with confidence. I don't know what more you need to say. You should have been playing him with confidence anyways.
I think if you look to last year, if he puts up another game or two close to this in a row, we just have an inverse of last year. Was started off really hot, had a couple downer games. He's still the same Jamar Chase. It's not going to be a boom week every week because he's not like a huge. He usually doesn't get 10 targets, but he does a lot with his targets. And so,
yes,
like we saw, 132 yards and 2 tutties, that can happen every week. And so, he's the same player he was last year. He proved it. It's just you're going to have some down weeks, but this year his down weeks aren't 4 points; they're 12. So,
right,
you should be feeling pretty good about Jamar Chase.
You should be feeling really good about Jamar Chase. I think. Like, I wish we would have made a video last week or talked about Jamar Chase being a buy low target. I don't know if you all talked about that on the Wednesday episode, but like he felt like the most obvious buy low to me.
Yeah.
And people were actually ready to move on from him, which I was surprised by.
Yeah, I can't believe that.
Just something you add on to that, Ty? I know you were muting yourself, but I just wanted to make sure. It looked like you were about ready to say something and then you muted yourself, right?
No, I think you guys said it right. Like his floor has been 10, 11, 12 points this year compared to 4 last year. And everyone's calling him a bust because we're not seeing weeks like we just saw on Sunday. And again, we've mentioned this before. 30-point weeks are rare. They should not be the standard. Christian McCaffrey, right, for running backs, 22 is averaging. Touchdown puts him at 28
for running backs.
He's the exception, right? That's why you're taking him 101 because he can do that. Not many players, if at all, can do that. Jamar Chase falls under that category.
100%. Yeah, you got to feel. Maybe hot take. Deebo Samuel's been a bigger bust than Jamar Chase this year. We don't have to dive into that. Deebo's currently the wide receiver 11, but he's only put up 1 game of more than 16 fantasy points.
Yeah, that's tough.
Again, I know we're not expecting 20 plus from Deebo every week, but like a guy you drafted to be a mid-tier wide receiver 1 is a borderline wide receiver 1 right now.
Yeah.
In comparison to what Jamar Chase has done, I'd much rather have drafted Jamar Chase than Deebo, personally. That's not the point, though, because Our wide receiver 2 on the week should be no surprise. Stephon Diggs, 13 targets, 10 receptions, 148 yards, and a touchdown. You knew big things were coming against Kansas City. Stephon Diggs, again, is on his revenge tour to be the overall wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. He may as well get there.
You want to hear his season average per game?
Please.
10 targets, 8 receptions, 110 yards, and 1 touchdown. He's averaging that every single week, and that is good enough for 25 fantasy points a game. And these are Cooper Kupp numbers. These are Cooper Kupp numbers, and I don't think he's going to slow down. There's no reason that him and Josh Allen slow down.
And Gabe Davis was back, had himself a nice little week too. Like, I think this is totally sustainable.
Mhm.
I don't think that's crazy to say. Honorable mentions here: Tyreek Hill. Hey, he's also really good at football. He didn't score. He scored 29 fantasy points.
He's always open. It's him and Justin Jefferson are the same. They're legitimately always open, but they're open 20 yards down the field.
Right.
It's like, what? How does nobody know that the ball's going to him?
Right.
I don't even know.
Yeah, that was funny to watch them go back and forth as it's like, you're both wide open. How? How are you both wide open? Brandon Ayuk scored twice on the day, 11 targets in this game. This mean anything, or just like right place, right time, right matchup, and right game script?
I don't think they wanted to challenge AJ Terrell. I know Terrell hasn't had the most amazing season, but they're throwing. I think you're just picking on. I mean, Atlanta doesn't got a great defense, right? And you're in a comeback.
Yet they held San Francisco to 14 points and Jeff Wilson to 5 rushing yards.
Yeah,
on 7 attempts.
Yeah, I just think that's what it was. But
it was a 25. Sorry, 25 yards on 7 attempts.
Yeah,
sorry,
25 fantasy points.
Yeah, right. That's what it was.
The Niners were playing. Oh my gosh, sorry. The Niners were playing from behind like the entire game.
Yeah,
like that. I don't think it's as simple as like, oh, they're playing from behind, so they have to pass the ball more. But clearly Atlanta made it a point to stop the run. They were willing to be beat through the air. It was just one of those games. I think that Debo had himself a decent game too.
So
yeah, Debo had a nice little week. Debo had 16. Kittle had 16.
So I think Ayuk was just the lucky one that found the end zone twice.
That's true. Without the touchdowns, he's at 16. So
it's still a nice little week, right? And those could have been redistributed anywhere. So really, it was a good week for all of your 49ers players that aren't
just
named
not
Jeff
the team
Wilson
as a whole.
Yeah, just not the team as a whole as you get beat by the Atlanta Falcons. Michael Pittman. Hey, welcome back, Michael Pittman. 26 fantasy points, 13 receptions, 130 yards this week. Matt Ryan threw the ball 58 times. So, that plays into this a little bit. But, also, this is what we expect from Michael Pittman. I said this, if you were 0-5, you should have gone out to go get Michael Pittman because this is what he's capable of because he is the only target in that offense. I should say only. I like Alec Pierce. I like Alec Pierce a lot. He's the number one by a country mile in that offense, though. And Matt Ryan is going to pepper him with 10-plus targets in every single game he can. And I don't care if Jonathan Taylor's out. I think that only helps Michael Pittman when Jonathan Taylor gets back.
Yep. Pittman is top 10 in fantasy points per game, and he has 1 touchdown on the season. The only player in the top 10 fantasy points per game with less than 2 touchdowns. So I'd say he's doing all right.
I'd say he's doing just fine. Chase Claypool. Yay, he's interesting. 23.4 fantasy points. He's had 16 targets the past 2 games. What's playing upwards? I don't know what that note is. That doesn't seem right. 90% snap share? Is that what you meant? It says target share. I'm like that's 90% target share. He's not coming close to that 90% snap share. What do you do with Chase Claypool? He's like the stupid obvious sell high. I don't need to tell you to go sell high on Chase Claypool, but also what do you do? Can you play him?
No.
No.
I feel like if you're really desperate, then maybe, if you're between him and KJ Osborne, obviously, but I have no confidence in starting him, right?
No, we saw George Pickens the past couple of weeks kind of what's the phrase I'm looking for? Take the targets, I'll say. And before that it was Deontay Johnson. It's just it looks like it's just a rotation between the guys.
Yep.
Yeah, if you can go trade Chase Claypool this week, I would go do that. I would go try and capitalize.
Definitely.
Juju Smith-Schuster, hey, had himself his first big week, 22.3 fantasy points. Any indication of things to come or right matchup with the Bills?
He made a heck of a play for his touchdown. I'm not expecting another play like that in weeks to come. So,
but it was Mahomes magic. It was Mahomes magic.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's right. Tony Romo. Was it Nance? I think it was Nance. It's Mahomes magic as Juju breaks tackles around 3 Bills players. Right. Yeah, Mahomes did that.
Mahomes said, let me sprinkle some magic dust on here and they aren't going to touch you, my friend. Do that every game. Freaking A. Juju's your best wide receiver, not named Travis Kelce.
Yep, I agree.
Like you looked like you're about to add it.
No, I'm not going to say anything else. I agree.
Tyquan Thornton. Hey, first big game as a rookie. 22 fantasy points. He had 3 rushing attempts and a rushing touchdown as well. I like him as a deep ad. I had him as a waiver stash going into this week. I'm not going to flex I don't want to flex too much of my content for Fantasy Pros, but like he was in my waiver stashes video. He's one I'm very proud of. Again, sign of things to come or right place, right time because Bailey Zappi is at quarterback right now. And they're without Damian Harris.
I think Myers got to get hurt for him to be legitimate fantasy asset moving forward because I think Myers is going to be the target hog and they're going to run first offense. I could see adding him. Maybe he does step up, especially if you're in a deeper league, like a 12-man league. But I'm not super interested in him personally.
I mean, on one hand, the part of the argument for Wan'Dale Robinson was, well, look at the draft capital that they use on Wan'Dale.
Tyquan Thornton was drafted ahead of him, wasn't he?
Same round. I know same round.
Yeah, same round, right. I think he was ahead of him. I'm not confident, but go ahead.
However it played out. They were both second round picks. So, like, the argument for Wan'Dale has to stand true for Tyquan Thornton. So, you sure add him, but it feels like they want to run the ball first. So, when Harris gets back, you already know that Ramondre and Harris are going to get touches. Then who gets the ball through the air? Myers for sure. And then it feels like it's really just kind of a rotation between Devontae Parker, now Tyquan Thornton. I don't know if I can include Hunter Henry. But like it feels like Tyquan is way lower on the priority list for me to give him a spot on my roster.
I don't think I'm going to burn a waiver priority on him, but if after the first round of waivers he's still there and I have an expendable option, I'm probably going to go try and stash him. Like he's got too much burning speed for Bill Belichick to use that kind of capital on him and not use him after a performance like that. Like we saw him take N'Keal Harry in the first round and became irrelevant. So I'm not trying to like use draft capital as a reason for the Patriots to play him. We all know that's not how Bill Belichick works, but after a game like that, like I find it hard not to think Bill should just get the ball into this guy's hands and just let him go to work.
Yep.
Paris Campbell, congrats. You had your one relevant game on the season. I don't care. Don't go pick him up.
He's my favorite guy in my dynasty team.
But wait a second. Who's the wide receiver 2 on the Colts? I thought it was Alec Pierce.
It still is. Stop it. Stop that right now. It is. Don't
Wait,
spread.
It is Alec Pierce?
Don't spread asinine information like that.
Or is Paris Campbell the wide receiver 2?
No, stop. It doesn't matter. Michael Pittman's the wide receiver 1. Oh, Ali Cox is the wide receiver 2. Let's move on to
0 this week.
Let's move on. Let's move on to quarterback booms. Joe Burrow, hey, had himself a week. 32 fantasy points, 37 attempts, 28 completions, 300 yards, 3 tutties on the week. Hey, congrats, Joe Burrow. This is what you drafted him for. This is his ceiling. Nah, he can go higher than 30, but you get my point of like, these are the games you drafted Joe Burrow for.
Mm-hmm. That is what would make the Burrow chase. This is why like people would go out of their way for the Burrow chase stack. You win your week if you have Burrow and Chase these this week. So I think, like you said, like they're such boom or bust. And then I mean, Burrow even added 4 rush attempts for 25 yards and a rushing touchdown. So I mean, it's something that he can repeat. It's going to be every week, but that's why we keep him top 10.
Right. Yeah. This is why he was never outside of our top 10.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he was at one point, but we brought him back in towards once the season got closer. Like, okay, actually, you know what? Quarterback 9 is probably where he should be. And he's hovering right around that range. After this week, he'll be right around the top 5. But again, ebbs and flows. We're only through week 6 right now. Matt Ryan on the back of 58 passing attempts, the quarterback 2 on the week with 27 fantasy points. You can't depend on Matt Ryan. You just can't. He's not going to throw the ball 58 times. Deion Jackson is going to see 10 targets a game. Like, outlier performance, you're going to get those from Matt Ryan every once in a while. Trevor Lawrence, though. Wow, he was insane. I didn't realize how efficient he was. 21 of 23, 168 yards, a touchdown, added 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground for 25 fantasy points. That really helps out your day if you can score 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that really upsets the Travis Etienne and James Robinson managers.
Yes, both of which are in shambles because now they're splitting carries and they're not even scoring touchdowns. Very true.
21 and 23, though, for only 168 is interesting to me. And just not moving the ball down the field. They came out with a victory, though, right? Jacksonville did. So
nope, they lost.
They lost. Oh, I had it backwards in my head, which makes even less sense that you're down the whole game. And
they were winning most of the game.
They were winning most of the
game.
Okay,
I'm going to stop talking about this game.
Yeah, I was going to say, honestly, it was one of those where it's watching the highlights are better and looking at the box score stats is what you really wanted to look at. It's all right.
I have the whole game backwards because I was flipping back and forth to it, and I just whatever.
No, you're
2-minute minor for Cam.
2-minute minor for misquoting the game. Josh Allen, he was a quarterback 3 on the week. No surprises there. Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback 6 on the week. Again, big shootout matchup there. Marcus Mariota, he makes me want to puke. 13 of 14 for 129 yards, 2 touchdowns, added a rushing touchdown as well for 24 fantasy points. I want nothing to do with Atlanta, like at all. You can't predict them whatsoever.
I want Atlanta because Marcus Mariota forever until the end of time will forever be an under on his passing yard prop lines.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. It is so obvious. They will never allow him to throw the football, but they will let him run the football.
Yes. For those of you questioning the sell high on Kyle Pitts or just sell on Kyle Pitts, Marcus Mariota is the reason. And that stat line, 13 of 14 for 129 yards, is the reason. So
people I was honestly waiting for response today. 3 receptions for 19 yards. His day was saved by his touchdown, and he was still barely top 12 on the week. Like,
still got out snapped by Parker Hesse or Hesse.
Get him off your team while you can. He scored a touchdown. Sell high. Kyle Pitts is a sell high, even though his week wasn't that great. Brother, that's brutal. Teddy Bridgewater, hey, crack the top 10 this week. You won't be seeing him in there very often or the rest of the season, really. So
no, that's just an endorsement of their wide receivers.
Very much so. Tight end booms of the week. Is this guy a wide receiver? Mike Gesicki, tight end 1 on the week, 25 fantasy points, excuse me. 6 receptions for 69 yards. Nice. And 2 touchdowns. This is it again. Congrats. You had your one big game, Mike Gesicki. I don't want you. Get away from me. Good riddance.
It's because I punked him last week. Because he got skunked last week, and we were like, why do we have him down there? I said, just to remind everyone that he is an all-time
That is true.
sit.
That did happen. That did happen last week. That's our fault. We apologize. I'm going to stop saying bad things about Mike Gesicki because he'll become fantasy relevant again. Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, both in the top 3. Again, this is what you expect. Their stat lines are eerily identical. 7 for 11 for 106 for Mark Andrews, 8 of 10 for 108 for Kelce. They're both really good at football. I've said that a lot on this podcast, but it's like we're talking studs today, basically, right? Like these are all the studs you expected from Bob Tunyon, though. Big day, 12 targets, 10 receptions for 90 yards.
Yeah, that's huge.
I think he's on your fantasy radar. If they're going to let Aaron Rodgers huck the ball as much as he has been recently, I think you have to add Bob Tonyan to your team.
Yeah.
Randall Cobb has a high ankle sprain. Christian Watson has been Christian Watson so far this year. Sammy Watkins is
What
not
is
week
that
one.
supposed to mean? What is that? What is that
injured,
supposed to mean?
He's injured and he's not seeing the field enough to make an impact.
Did he have that reputation before being drafted?
Well, no, but he got injured. It's his fault.
So he's
his
just
fault.
Christian Watson. That's who he's been.
What a bummer.
What a bum. No, sorry, Christian, you didn't deserve that. That was cheap. But he has not made an impact that a lot of people thought he would make being a second-round pick. Sammy Watkins, again, is not week one Sammy Watkins anymore. He's been injured for a while. That's 3 pass-catching options that are just not making impacts. I mean, Randall Cobb did, but he's injured now. So that leaves Rodgers with Lazard, who arguably is a buy low because nobody's talking about him, but keep it under the radar because.
Did you say Aaron Rodgers is a buy low? Sorry, I like
Al Lazard.
Okay, there it is. I'm like, I heard an A name and I zoned out for a second, and I was about to come back at you.
Yeah, and then Romeo Dobbs, that's the second guy, and then Tonyan, and arguably, I for as good as Dobbs has been, it would be crazy for the Packers to not simplify the offense and Rodgers just to go back to Lazard and Tonyan as the 2 guys that he trusts the most.
I feel like we'll start to see that pivot here. We started to a little bit this week. I believe Dobbs still had 8 targets. He's just not connecting with Dobbs, though. He's connecting with Lazard and he's connecting with Tonyan. Let's just keep that going. Frankly, I think they need to keep leaning into Aaron Jones, but they don't want to.
I know it's weird that they don't use their running backs more.
Makes me sick that they don't use either Dillon or Jones anymore. George Kittle, hey, welcome back. 10 targets, 8 receptions for 83 yards. This is what you need from George Kittle. He may not give it to you every week, but this is what you drafted him to do. I don't want to talk about George Kittle too much because, frankly, this is what he should be doing anyways. And I don't know if you can count on him doing it every single week. Just the unfortunate reality. I'm going to fly through the rest of these disgusting names. Hunter Henry, congrats, scored a touchdown. Daniel Bellinger, cool. You're like the only wide receiver option on your team. Jake Ferguson, congrats, you fell into the end zone. Dawson Knox, congrats, you fell into the end zone. Like, bleh. Only name I do want to bring up here is Zach Ertz, another game with double-digit targets. That is 4 of his last 5.
Yeah, we forgot to mention him when we were talking about Cardinals earlier.
Yes, I forget. Yeah, I still think he's perfectly fine and relevant, though.
I
Because now
think
that
he's a
Marquise
second
Brown
option,
is out, I still think Zach Ertz I shouldn't say he should thank his lucky stars that Marquise Brown is hurt, but like that certainly helps his relevance a lot.
Yep.
A lot. All right, let's move on to bus now. We've got about 15 minutes here to fly through bus. I'm so happy we get to start with this one.
That's why I put it
fellas, can we just like pat or give ourselves a round of applause? Round of applause, pat on the back. Yes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Told you
the biggest fantasy phony of the first 4 weeks, and it could not have been more obvious. And people continue to say, well, they use him around the goal line. They design plays, receiving plays for him. How are you going to explain 9 carries for 33 yards and 0 targets and being the lowest scoring Kansas City Chiefs running back on the week? What do you have to say for yourselves? Silence. That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not here to explain yourselves, but
we're the voice of the people.
We're the voice of the people. Yes. Yeah. Biggest phony. You could see this coming from 10 miles away. It was not going to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked when it did against Tampa, and that's because that Mahomes magic got to him. That Mahomes magic got to him in the back corner of the end zone on a dumpy little shovel pass. J.K. Dobbins, we touched on him. 7 attempts for 15 yards. Did not look great. Got out-touched by Kenyon Drake. I don't want to start J.K. Dobbins going forward. I thought he'd be a fine play this week, but especially if that knee is still giving him issues, I'd look to put him in a trade package and see if anybody is willing to bite on him.
Yep. I jumped the gun 2 weeks ago. I said he was back, was going to be fine on their overreaction Monday, and I was wrong. I'll admit it. He, like you said, if the knee's still bothering him, and they're just like, if Gus comes back, Gus is not going to be full, but it's just going to be a mess in that backfield. So I agree with Ty moving forward that you just can't touch the Ravens backfield for a little while.
Yeah, 100% agree. Jeff Wilson, disgrace. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Sold on my parlay.
Everybody's parlays. That was the easiest 65.5 I should have ever received, and he fumbled the bag literally. 7 attempts for 23 yards and a fumble. How do you do that against Atlanta?
Yeah. Well, he had 6 attempts for like 20 yards right away, and then fumbled, and then they just didn't give him the ball for the rest of the game.
I mean, they're playing 21-7 pretty much the whole game. Well, 14-14, and then Atlanta got a big lead on them, and they never recovered. So Jeff Wilson never touched the football. Just disappointing. You can expect him to bounce back, but that's just disappointing in a game that he should have had another 15 fantasy points for sure. Kareem Hunt, one of my flag plants. He is just not. It's been the Nick Chubb show, and Nick Chubb even had a poor week. Also in the honorable mentions, 8 fantasy points, running back 24 on the week, but Kareem Hunt, 4 attempts for 15 yards and a target. Like, Bill Belichick accomplished his mission of stopping the Cleveland Browns run game. That's how you beat the Cleveland Browns.
And I mentioned this in our group chat. The worst part about both of these stat lines, really for both, but the emphasis goes on Kareem Hunt here. Kareem Hunt touched the ball 4 times. His name was called upon 5 times, right? With 1 target, 4 rushing attempts. He only had 1 less snap played than Nick Chubb. They both had about 30 snaps. And Kareem Hunt only got 4 carries.
It was just a weird game.
That's hard.
Really weird game. That was a very weird game. It was a very weird game. I agree. Aaron Jones, your other bust of the week, 7.4 fantasy points. So running back 26. Like, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, Antonio Gibson was a top 20 running back this week.
Top 24 running back. He was running back 23 on the week.
Oh, goodness. That just goes to
8.8.
show how bad running back scoring was this week.
Yep.
Aaron Jones, 7.4 fantasy points. Look, they need to get Aaron Jones more involved. I don't care if it comes at the price of A.J. Dillon. Tyler, no offense. I love A.J. Dillon too. You know I love that man. But, like, if it comes at the expense of A.J. Dillon, they need to get Aaron Jones the football because last I checked, he does good things when the football is in his hands.
It's just weird to me that he only has 23 targets on the year. Right?
You would think they would have him more involved.
He's averaging under 4 targets a game. Like, why is this man not seeing 6, 7 targets a game? That's what I think he should be seeing, getting him the ball in space, but I don't understand it either.
Just a weird season for the Packers all around. They genuinely look discombobulated. That offensive line is not good.
No.
It's not good. It looks putrid when you watch those games. Wide receiver bust of the week, DK Metcalf, 5.4 fantasy points. Let's just put Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf together because, man, that Arizona-Seattle game was a tough watch.
Disgusting.
That was a tough watch. 7 targets, 2 receptions, 34 yards for DK Metcalf, wide receiver 53 on the week. Lockett was a wide receiver 61 with 2 receptions on 5 targets for 17 yards. I'm expecting both of these two to bounce back. Golly, that was an ugly game, though. I didn't think it could be more of a mid-off. Like, that was putrid. That was absolutely putrid. DJ Moore, he finds himself in the bust category quite a bit. 3.7, wide receiver 61, 7 targets, 3 receptions for 7 yards. 7 yards?
Yeah. 7 yards on 3 catches.
Somebody get that man a quarterback, please. DJ Moore, I would do a lot of things for you right now to get you a quarterback. I am so sorry.
Yeah, it was not good. They couldn't handle the pressure from the Rams up front, and I don't know what happened. It was ugly to watch.
Curtis Samuel, he's been pretty solid all year. 2.6 fantasy points, though. Wide receiver 70 on the week. 2 receptions on 5 targets for 60 yards. Again, just got a lot of disgusting games this week.
Yeah.
A lot of disgusting games. At least primetime didn't disappoint because you still had the Chiefs and the Bills. That was a good game. That was a fun game to watch.
Yep.
Even Cowboys-Eagles was a solid watch last night.
Yeah, Cowboys made it interesting at the end.
Right.
Halfway through, I guess.
Yep. Honorable mentions here. We got Mike Evans. He upsets me. That whole Tampa Bay offense upsets me. Wide receiver 44 on the week, 8.2 fantasy points. Terry McLaurin. Can we talk about Chris Godwin for a second? Like, I know he's not on the bus, but like, who would rather, like, is it a conversation to have Mike Evans or Chris Godwin going forward? Is that a conversation? Like, is that a thing? Because Mike Evans did outscore Chris Godwin last week, but it wasn't by much. And then Chris Godwin, the clear target winner this week. Like,
He
I
has
know
been
it's
the
only
last
2
2
weeks.
weeks.
He's outscored him the last 2 weeks.
Oh no, he hasn't outscored him. Never mind.
I was gonna
That was
say
my
I thought Mike Evans still did. But like, is that a conversation? Like, is that a thing? Or am I like just overreacting to 1 week?
I think they're both still good because I think the problem with the Bucks is they haven't been getting in the red zone the last 2 weeks. And that's where because Mike Evans is going to take the Mike Evans role from last year and the Gronk role from last year. And so he's going to be the red zone target, and Chris Godwin's got to get him up and down the field. So I think Godwin's always going to be safer and win the target battle between the two. But Evans does have that touchdown upside, and I think Evans has a big playability upside, but the Bucks just have struggled the last 2 weeks on offense, and so I think that's a real big part of it.
Yeah, it literally feels like if Evans scores, then he will outscore Godwin. That's how it feels.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled about either going forward, but I shouldn't say thrilled. That's an overreaction. I think you can feel fine about both of them going forward, though this week is definitely concerning for both of their values, respectively. Terry McLaurin, we've been saying it. Literally, you should have never drafted him in the first place at his value. Wide receiver 43 on the week, 8.2 fantasy points. If he's on your team, get rid of him. Go sell him while you still can. Yeah, with Wentz out too. Well, now you probably can't sell him, but we tried telling you before this week. Get out from underneath him. Like, you never should have taken him as a top 20 wide receiver to begin with. Just disgraceful. Deontay Johnson. What do you do with him? What do you do?
The same with all Steelers wide receivers. You can't trust them.
Just go sell. You
Just
think
go
so?
sell. Just go sell.
Find a Steelers fan and give him to him.
There you go. That's your leverage. If you got a Steelers fan in your league, go give him Deontay Johnson. T. Higgins saw 10 targets in this game, only 10 fantasy points. So he got off to like a really slow start to this game.
He's still not 100% healthy.
No, he isn't. That was pretty clear this week. Give him a full week of rest though. I still love T. Higgins going forward. I think he's a buy low now. Like, if you he's been putting up some big games. I think if you can go get T. Higgins at a value, like, I'm not telling you to go out and trade Chase Claypool for T. Higgins. You're not going to get that to go through. Yep. But if you can upgrade from someone like a Christian Kirk to a T. Higgins who also made the bust list, like I think I would do that.
Can you do Deontay Johnson for T. Higgins?
Yes, you could do that. Go do that. If you can do that, go do that. Because
if you look
at it, you'll have to add something in there, but like it's not going to take much. It's going to take you taking a slight downgrade at running back. That's what it's going to take, right? Yeah, go out and do that. Deontay Johnson for T. Higgins. I would do that in a heartbeat.
I would even do Deontay and Terry McLaurin for T. Higgins.
Oh, I would want another I want like a Rondale Moore in return then.
But I have zero faith in either of them moving forward. So like that would be where it comes from, because I really believe that T. Higgins can come back to being a borderline wide receiver 1, and I don't think either of these guys are going to be anything close to that. That would be the only reason.
I 100% agree. I said Christian Kirk made this list, 12.7 wide receiver, 30 on the week. Did have his days saved by a touchdown. Somebody else talk. I'm about to sneeze.
It was another ugly week. He had like 30 yards receiving. But it was just what Trevor Lawrence was doing, right? We talked about that earlier. Lawrence was super efficient, 21-23. We only had 198 passing yards. You're not going to have a big yardage day if your quarterback doesn't. And I think Indy's got a kind of a sneaky good defense. I think
they got a sneaky good secondary. Tyler and I were talking about this yesterday as we were watching.
That's something that's been kind of underrated going through. So, I mean, he's I think he's wide receiver 14 on the season so far in fantasy. You're feeling pretty good moving forward still, even though it was a little bit of a down week.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. All right, let's move on here. We got only a few minutes to cover out these last two bust categories. Quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers. Bye-bye. He can hit the waiver wire as far as I'm concerned. That might be a hot take. I think he can hit the waiver wire. Hasn't scored more than 17 fantasy points this year. He's been under that more times than not. Like and with how many passing attempts he's gotten, like I'm concerned. Like if you drafted him to be a starter, like we're talking like he's like the Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford tier right now. Quarterback 19 on the season.
Averaging less points per game than Russell Wilson right now. 1 point more a game than Justin Fields right now.
Oh, I need to go on a Packers tirade. Not
Averaging
really. I'm a Minnesota
less than
Vikings
Jimmy
fan. I like seeing
Garoppolo.
their downfall. But
I mean, someone on this podcast said that Kirk Cousins is going to outscore Aaron Rodgers in fantasy football this year.
Oh, I was with you on that.
Yeah, whoever said that is, they knew something. They knew what they were talking about.
Rodgers is averaging less than Jacoby Brissett right now.
Oh no.
Yep. 0.6 points per game.
This is your GOAT. This is your GOAT. I'm kidding.
He's not a Hall of Famer anymore. He can't.
I'm just kidding. There's our overreaction. There's our overreaction. We found it.
You can cut Aaron Rodgers. Go stream quarterbacks instead of starting Aaron Rodgers. He's had too many opportunities that it's like his week against this team, and he hasn't done it.
He's averaging less than Joe Flacco.
Oh, he is a bum.
Someone get that man back on psychedelics. Zach Wilson.
You know how bad Russell Wilson has been? Yeah,
I do not condone that statement. I do not condone that statement. Zach Wilson. Are we really talking about Zach Wilson in the bus?
Well, I just put it on because
4.5 is pretty atrocious.
Yeah, he was just like, you can't even like stream him at any point this season with how bad he's been in his return.
Yeah,
he was awful last week and bad this week.
Yeah, well, okay. Is it Zach Wilson has been bad, or has it just been that Breece Hall has been that good?
I think it's both, but I think the coaching staff's just showing we're going to treat him like Justin Fields and not let him throw the ball. So
yeah,
that's what it is.
Oh, I mean, seriously, yeah. Why would you put the ball in his hands if he can't hit his open receivers?
But unlike the Bears, the Jets are actually doing well with Breece Hall. So
yeah, right. Honorable mentions here: Matt Stafford. Look, bye-bye. He can hit the waiver wire too, as far as I'm concerned.
He's been awful.
The offensive line is just atrocious. He has no time to throw the football. Last two we'll wrap out quarterback honorable mentions. You probably could have started them based on other quarterback performances in this week if you're in a 12-man league. Kyler Murray, 16 fantasy points, Tom Brady, 13.7, quarterback 15. You just expected more out of their matchups this week.
Yeah, that's kind of why I threw them on the list. Was they were two guys that you were really expecting huge weeks from, and then they just were super disappointing for what we had expected. Like if you put them in, your week's not over, but we're disappointing.
Right, 100%. All right, let's wrap out this episode here with tight end bus. Taysom Hill, you expected semi-big things from him after an explosive week last week and seeing a lot of rushing work. Only 4.5 fantasy points. 5 rushing attempts for 39 yards. You didn't get any receptions, but you got more rushing attempts. Gerald Everett, just another brutal week. 1 reception on 2 targets for 16 yards.
He hasn't played yet.
No, he hasn't. You're right. He's on the list.
Oh, shoot. I didn't change their names. That's Tyler Higbee.
Tyler Higbee. I'm like, I didn't update the doc today. I'm just reading this as I go.
I updated the doc. That's my bad. I didn't change their names. Here, let me look up who
that's a 5-minute major there.
I think Higbee was 1 for 2 for 7 yards, if I'm not mistaken.
The other guy was oh man, now I'm screwed up. Oh, I can't believe I did it. Tyler Conklin.
There we go. 2 Tylers. Not Gerald Everett. He played. Maybe he has one reception for 16 yards tonight, and really that stat line makes sense. But at any rate, and then you suck. Why'd you put this name on here?
Well, because last week we did Mike Gesicki, so I'm hoping we punk more Cox this week, and we get 2 tutties next week.
Voodooing Mo Alley Cox. Big week. He had 0 this week. Another 20 plus from Mo Alley next week. Get my man back into fantasy relevance. Anything you two want to add before we wrap up the episode?
I just want to put in perspective how good Josh Allen is. I don't know why, but I feel like I need to. He's on pace right now for 5,600 passing yards and 56 total touchdowns this season. I don't know why, but I wanted to tell everybody that.
No, the people need to know. I think
Yeah.
we're actually going to see like this. We could talk about this on a different episode. I think we're going to see quarterbacks become like tight ends in fantasy football drafts now, where you're going to get the top 2 who are going to be drafted in the first 2 rounds, the top 3 drafted in the first 2 rounds, and then you're going to get everybody else in like the 5th, 6th round after that. Like I think we're going to start seeing that kind of a premium on a Josh Allen, on a Lamar Jackson, on a Jalen Hurts. I know we typically do already, but like I think that precedent is going to start to become more accepted.
My last thing, do you guys remember when people were saying that Albert Okwegman, Lucas, help me, please.
Albert Okwegman.
Albert O. You remember when people were saying that he was going to be a top 10 fantasy option this year?
Oh, gosh. That was the worst time to be on fantasy Twitter.
He's inactive for Monday Night Football.
Yeah, Greg Dulcich, healthy, going to be playing tonight. All you Albert O truthers, shame on you. Just a disgrace. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Make sure you follow our socials. FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on TikTok and YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you are watching this YouTube video, turn on those notifications so you get alerts when all of our new videos go up. I'm at Lucas Wentzel, Camlaw317, Tyler_Plath on Twitter. Three Stooges being dudes, Fantasy Football Fellas. We will see you all later this week to preview week 7 of NFL action. Deuces.
Deuces.